Of course, Steph Curry with his dad, the emotions just pouring out. It might be his fourth, but it means so much. All the sacrifice, all the work.
What are the Golden State Warriors doing with their roster? Inquiring minds want to know. Look, one of the things that many leagues try and do is make it fair for almost everyone to have a fair shot at the title. They make sure that trades and free agency has clear rules so that anyone can go for anyone, and the draft is meant to balance things out in theory. But the taxes that the high-end teams, and especially the champ teams, sometimes face is enough to disrupt a dynasty, which is why many of the key role players in the recent champ team of the Warriors are no longer with the squad, and many aren't happy about that. Bad fallout. The Golden State Warriors won the NBA championship, but their roster for next season will look different. Their core, led by Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Andrew Wiggins, and Jordan Poole, remain intact. However, several role players are gone, including Gary Payton II and Otto Porter Jr. While the front office wanted both players back, the team's cap luxury tax situation prevented President of Basketball Operations and General Manager Bob Myers from offering them competitive contracts. Andy Bailey from Bleacher Report compiled a list of the worst decisions of the NBA offseason. Among them was the Warriors' decision to not retain Payton II and Porter Jr. Retaining Gary Payton II and Otto Porter Jr., especially with upcoming extensions or new contracts for Jordan Poole, Draymond Green, and Andrew Wiggins on the horizon, would have been a very expensive decision. But losing two of the most important role players on a championship team is a bad alternative. Bailey's take seems reasonable. To replace Payton II and Porter Jr., the Warriors signed Donte DiVincenzo, who averaged 10.3 points for the Kings last season, and JaMychal Green, who averaged 6.4 points with the Nuggets. Both are solid role players who can give the Warriors quality minutes off the bench next season. The two players. Payton II was cut from the Warriors in early October, and at one point he asked about joining the team's video coordination department. But he earned the last spot on the roster and averaged 7.1 points, 3.5 rebounds, 1.4 steals, and 0.9 blocks in just 17.6 minutes over 71 games, 16 starts. He shot 61.6% from the field and 35.8% from beyond the arc. His three-point shooting was a revelation, as many considered him a poor three-point shooter. Porter Jr. played well in the playoffs, leading the Warriors in offensive rating at 118.6 and a net rating of 12.4. He was one of the best reserves in the regular season, averaging 8.2 points, 5.7 rebounds, and 1.1 steals in 22.2 minutes over 63 games with 15 starts. He shot 46.4% from the field and 37% from three-point range. Granted, neither of them have the ability of the Big Three in the Warriors, but that's not the point. They were there to help them when the Big Three weren't assembled, which, if you recall, was most of last season. Curry was even injured during the first round of the playoffs, and he came off the bench as a result. When you aim for a dynasty like the Warriors are trying to do once again, you want chemistry and consistency and a knowledge that you know who has your back. Right now, that's a bit up in the air, and the Warriors will have to work hard at the beginning of the season in order to get things done. Losses and gains. Having lost Otto Porter Jr. to the Toronto Raptors and Gary Payton II to the Portland Trail Blazers, the Golden State Warriors had some vacancies to fill in the rotation. While it will be tough to replicate exactly what Porter and Payton provided, the team made a solid move to acquire Donte DiVincenzo, signing the guard to a 2-year, $9.3 million contract. Draymond Green addressed the move on a recent edition of the Draymond Green Show, saying, "Warriors also signed Donte, which I thought was a great pickup. Steph and I definitely put the full court press on Donte in understanding how important that addition is. With losing Gary Payton II, you add another wing who can defend." On what DiVincenzo provides, Draymond said, "Donte can shoot the ball. I think he's going to get more shots with us than he's ever gotten, and that'll be absolutely incredible. I think he'll have an opportunity to show his athletic ability. I think this will be a very good move for Donte, and I think this will be really good for the Warriors. So I'm absolutely happy about that signing." Despite not playing much during the 2021 postseason, DiVincenzo was a member of the Milwaukee Bucks team that won it all that year. So he has experienced deep playoff success, which is something the Warriors value. While he is a different player than Gary Payton II, DiVincenzo should provide some of what the Warriors lost with Payton joining the Trail Blazers. Reacting to the losses. As noted, the Golden State Warriors begun free agency by losing Gary Payton II, Juan Toscano Anderson, and Otto Porter Jr. to other teams. With GP2 going to Portland, JTA going to the Lakers, and OPJ going to Toronto, the Warriors watched 3 players from their championship roster go elsewhere. Golden State has since retained Looney and signed Dante DiVincenzo, but their ability to retain Porter and Payton will certainly be felt. With the news that Gary Payton II, Juan Toscano Anderson, and Otto Porter Jr. would be going elsewhere, Draymond Green shared individual posts on his Instagram story, congratulating his former teammates, each time paying respect to them and thanking them for helping make the team champs. Congratulating Gary Payton II, Juan Toscano Anderson, and Otto Porter Jr. not only on their new opportunities, but also their championship rings, Draymond is proud of his former teammates. There is always a connection that will exist between teammates who won titles together, and while these 3 may be on to new teams, they will always be connected to Draymond and the rest of the 2022 Warriors team. The Warriors have done well to retain Looney and sign DiVincenzo, but they will certainly miss the contributions their former players provided. Each member of the 2021-2022 Warriors team played a part in their successful season. Whether it was a big role in the playoffs or a small role during the regular season, each member of the roster had a big moment at some point during the year. The only good news here is that a big player they lost last year will be back in this one. James Wiseman. James Wiseman made his long-awaited return to the court during the Summer League, and he looked good. Wiseman played in his first game since April 2021 for the Golden State Warriors Summer League team at the Thomas and Mack Center. While it's just the Summer League and it doesn't mean anything, it marked Wiseman's first game since he tore the meniscus in his right knee. He looked more than fully recovered, too. It felt good just to run out there, be out there with my teammates, and just be grateful I'm out here, Wiseman told Yahoo Sports' Chris Haynes after the game. I haven't played in a whole year and a half, so it's kind of different for me out there, but I'm going to get back to it. Wiseman averaged 11.5 points and 5.8 rebounds in 39 games during his rookie season before his meniscus injury, which required surgery just days after he went down. The 2020 number 2 overall pick then needed a second knee surgery in December and was eventually sidelined for the season. He repeatedly tried to make a return and even briefly in the G League, but the Warriors shut him down for good in March. Wiseman will likely keep ramping up his minutes throughout the team's time in Las Vegas before hitting the court full speed this fall. As far as a return goes, however, Wiseman was a success, and it reminded fans what he's capable of providing for the defending champions. While his return might not guarantee things for the Warriors, having that big presence inside is honestly something they've always lacked, more or less. So getting him back at full power and putting him where they need him could help facilitate things and lift the team up as a whole. Though obviously we'll have to see if this swap is worth it when the time comes. So what do you think? What do you think of this look at the Golden State Warriors and how things are currently shaping up in terms of the people they've lost and the ones they've replaced them with? Do you understand why so many on the squad aren't happy with the losses? Or do you think this was just a business as usual? Let us know in the comments below, and we will see you next time on the channel.